Hi, and welcome to the Blitz Online edition. I'm Josh. This is Fong and Colin. We've got a couple upsets, a potential upset, and a lot of teams on the verge of making playoffs. We'll start with Troy hosting Trotwood. Troy comes out of the gate strong, kind of gives Trotwood a little surprise, and then Trotwood becomes Trotwood.
I definitely think Trotwood took Troy a little lightly, coupled by the fact Troy threw every trick they had in the book at them. They were trying halfback passes, they were trying onside kicks, they got lucky and got a kickoff return on the opening kickoff for a touchdown. Unfortunately, at some point, simple physics takes over, and that's what happened. Force equals mass times acceleration, and Trotwood had a whole lot of mass and a whole lot of acceleration, which equaled a whole lot of force, which made it just... And really, that's what it came down to. Trotwood was bigger and faster and stronger than Troy, and when the tricks ran out, and Troy ran out of tricks, and the tricks stopped working, Trotwood was just too much physically for Troy to handle.
Colin, you got a first-hand look at that too.
I did, and me and Fong were both talking about this. If anyone's ever seen the movie Friday Night Lights, it looked like it was Dallas Carter versus the Permian Panthers, except they weren't as good as the Permian Panthers. I'm sorry.
It was scary. Trotwood is scary with the size that they possess.
Yes, big boys.
And they're still sitting on the verge. You know, Trotwood is still looking to go on the road in the playoffs, which is going to spell something bad for somebody in Division 2.
There is nobody who wants to see Trotwood come to town. Nobody.
Which brings us to our next game. We had Tip hosting Tecumseh, and this was the biggest shocker of the weekend. I'm sure we can all agree with that. Tecumseh going on the road to undefeated Tip, dominating the offensive side of the ball, keeping Tip's defense on the field all game long, and then just having enough to hold Tip off at the end and win it in overtime.
I guess maybe we should have seen this coming when Tip struggled a little bit against Stebbins the week before, but I think all three of us thought this would be the wake-up call. I guess that wake-up call didn't come because Tecumseh shocked all of us, I think.
Mm-hmm. And they're about to get another close game this week against Shawnee. I mean, Kenton Ridge, excuse me, and then the following week against Shawnee. But Tip's got to be ready to go in these next two games. I mean, they're very important for their playoff hopes and league hopes. I mean, they're gonna have to get rolling.
Tip actually is in a little bit of danger. If they don't win these next two games, they might miss out completely.
And that would be tragic the way they started the season for that to happen.
Especially with the streak they've got going 9 years in a row.
Correct.
They've been in, and they were looking to host. So this might have helped them if they can win those last two games, because maybe they can kind of skate away from Trotwood. But
they're gonna have to get through sooner or later.
Yeah. They did have a chance in this game, too. Tecumseh was leading 21-14. Tip tied it with a touchdown with 0.2 seconds on the clock. And they could have gone for two. And I understand Charlie's logic in this, and I'm not going to second-guess a guy that's been doing this as long as Charlie Bergbacher has. But I guess I am going to a little bit. I mean, with a team, Tecumseh put together a 19-play scoring drive. They had, at one point in the first half, 43 offensive plays run to Tip's 5, and the score was tied. Right. So that's a lot of time for your defense to be on the field, and I just think that they could have gone for the win there at the end. They could have gone for the 2 and just given its defense a break in that overtime.
Had it been me, I probably would have gone for the 2. But you know what? There's a reason why I'm sitting here. and Charlie Bergbacher has 200 wins, and I have 0.
That's exactly my thought.
So who am I to say? It's awful easy to sit here and make that second guess now as well.
Mm-hmm. Going off that, I think I would probably do the same thing in that situation, especially at home. Maybe not on the road, but at home I would go for 2 in that situation. But once again, we are not coaches.
He gets paid to make the hard decisions,
exactly.
And we get paid to be jerks and talk about it.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And another upset we had last week. Dixie going to Milton Union on the Bulldogs' homecoming night and shocking them by a point.
No one saw that coming. Absolutely. That we were worried about it wrecking Milton's season, but I don't know that it totally wrecks it, but it certainly puts a big dent into things.
Yeah, and I think the thing that really stuck out from that game was the special teams play. building with the couple missed extra points. And I mean, that just goes to show you how important special teams are to a football game. I mean,
it wasn't even missed extra points. Dixie blocked an extra point, which Tip had done the year before to win by this exact score.
Right.
But then Milton Union had 2 more chances at field goals in that fourth quarter, and those got blocked too. 3 blocked kicks in that last quarter. It's just
it's rough.
especially with such a solid kicker like Nick Fields.
Yeah.
Miami East hosted Bradford in just another tough game to call last week. James Cannon versus the Viking defense. Mr. 2,000 yards versus the toughest, probably, arguably, aside from Covington, defense in the CCC. And he shut him down.
I don't know that it's arguably. Covington is the best, arguably the second best defense.
I was
in the
arguing
CCC.
that they were the second
They
best.
definitely.
Covington is definitely the best defense.
They by far are the best, or the second best defense in the CCC. The teams that Covington has played so far, when you look at those games and the alarming rate which Covington is scoring at, I mean, going against East, they made it challenging for Covington. They had, I think, 21 points at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I had complete faith in the Vikings defense that game. All they had to do was stop James Cannon, or at least keep him out of the end zone, which they did. I mean, I think he scored 1 touchdown in that game, as opposed to the 5 he's averaging every week. You know?
Actually, the East did the same thing to Cannon that Covington did to him. 1 long touchdown run and bottled him up from there.
Right. It was a great effort by the Miami East defense, obviously.
And of course, Michael Fellers, our Blitz cover boy, he turned this game around with a kickoff return for a touchdown, answering a Bradford score. East gets another stop on defense after that, turns around, scores again, and they just cruised from there. Speaking of Covington's defense and Covington's offense and Covington's everything versus
Next.
Next.
there's a
Well, welcome to reality, National Trail.
National Trail was exposed for sure.
I said it last week, and didn't I say 6 touchdowns? Way over 6 touchdowns.
I think Covington had a statement to make with this game. I think they wanted to make sure everybody knew that National Trail's 1 loss was, their 1-loss record was blown out of proportion.
Paper Tigers.
And Bethel taking Ansonia down 38-18. Now they're 3-5 with 2 games remaining, 2 fairly winnable games remaining. Bethel, in Kevin Finfrock's first year, could get to 500.
That would be a great way to start his tenure there at Bethel, to finish 500 with a team that struggled a little bit. For him to come in, new coach, new system, for them to go 500 against, let's face it, a very much improved cross-county conference. The cross-county conference spent a lot of time as a laughingstock around the area, but there's some good teams. They're playing some good football there this year. And for them to go 500 against that kind of competition, I think would be saying a lot for them.
That's debatable for me. I'm not sold on the CCC as a whole. I mean, I think there's 3 or 4 good teams, but I think the rest of the conference kind of drops off.
It used to be 1 or 2 good teams.
Yeah.
Okay,
So they're moving in the right
They're
direction.
definitely moving in the right direction.
All right.
But also, Bethel is the only team in the county right now that's mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Even though we've got a few others that are probably not going to make it in.
They're going to finish the year strong. I mean, which is what we've been saying pretty much for the last 5-6 weeks.
They've still got one thing to play for. They've still got the 500 record to hit. So. Piqua going on a 2-game winning streak again. They took down Greenville 38-33.
Didn't see that coming either. Piqua was able to pull out the win, but I never would have guessed that it would have been that close. And it actually came down to a couple plays right there at the end. If Greenville converts a 4th down late in the game, they have a chance to go ahead and win that game. So I think that took a lot of people by surprise. Greenville's a team that's been struggling all season long, but they look pretty good against Piqua from what I understand.
And then Lehman cashing in, beating Upper Scioto Valley, a winless team, but 14-0 still. I mean, they get to 500 right now, and this is their last week coming up. They don't have a Week 10 game.
Yeah,
so
it's big, and their defense is you can't knock their defense, what they've done this year. They've played some pretty good games, and I think that's a trend that continued last week.
I'm glad they don't play a Week 10 opponent, because that way we don't have to miss picking who's going to win again in Week 10 for Lehman, because we don't have a very good batting average when it comes to picking Cavaliers games.
Which brings us to this week's cover story. We've got Michael Fellers from Miami East, who just does a little bit of everything for the Vikings. He's their number 2 running back. He's their number 2 receiver. He is their kickoff returner. He's their punt returner. He's a defensive back. He punts, and actually punting may be where they utilize him as a weapon the most. He averages right around 40 yards a punt, and not a lot of high school teams can boast that kind of field position war. Michael Fellers just changes the game in every facet of it. He got an interception this weekend against Bradford, returned a kickoff for a touchdown, which is his first one of those. He's got 2 punt returns for touchdowns, and he'll tell you that there's nothing he loves more than returning kicks.
My main position on offense is running back, and most of my yards, gotta give credit to the guys for the blocks. I make some moves on guys if I can, but mainly it's the blocks that give me the yards.
He's just a fine athlete, and you want to try and use his athleticism to our advantage. He can punt, he can kick off, he can return kicks, and also playing offense at running back and defense with his. He picked 6 passes off last year. He finally got one last week against Bradford.
Special teams is what I really like to do. That's what I like to do a lot. I spend most of my time on special teams. It really means a lot to me that people look up to me, and I'm given the opportunity to do all those different things and help the team make them better.
All right, now we're on to the Week 9's games. We'll start off with Troy going on the road to Greenville. 1-7 Greenville. Troy's looking to get to 500 also in Scott Brewer's first year. I think this will be a good way to start on that road.
And I tell you what, Greenville has traditionally never been an easy place for Troy to play. In Ryan Brewer's 4 years at Troy High School from 1995 to 1998, they lost exactly 1 league game, and that was a game that they lost at Greenville. And that was the only Greater Miami Valley Conference game they lost in the 4 years Ryan Brewer and Chris Dillman were in high school. So it's never been an easy place to play for Troy, but I still think they'll end up going over there and pulling out the win this week.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Troy on this too, just based on their records and what Troy's done versus some of the common opponents this year. I think you got to give the game to Troy.
We've got one of the tougher ones to pick this week. Kenton Ridge going to Tippecanoe. Tip coming off of that first really disappointing loss. Kenton Ridge is a 6-2 team, same record in the CBC. I think Tip will get the ship righted this week, but it could be closer than some people might think, especially some people like us leading up to the last couple weeks.
Yeah, for the longest time, I mean, we were kind of putting Tippecanoe in the same boat as we were putting Covington. Another week, another win, 10-0. Obviously, the last 2 weeks have proven us wrong in that regard. Tip is a team that that does have some flaws, obviously, and some of those have been exposed the last couple of weeks. But I agree with you. I think this week they're going to get things turned around, and I think they'll be okay. And I think they'll get past Kenton Ridge this week.
As much as I want to see Tip win, I'm going to pick Kenton Ridge. And you guys know why. It's because I want to catch him in the race.
He's got some ulterior motives for his picks.
I do.
He's got some ground to make up.
I think Kenton Ridge is very capable of doing it, just based off what we've seen the last 2 weeks. Yes, we were all thinking Tip was going to go 10-0, make the playoffs, have at it. That has not been the case in the last couple of weeks. It's not the team we've seen. Kenton Ridge, the league opponent, the last couple games Tip has very, very, very challenging, and I think I'm going to give the game to Kenton Ridge just based on that technicality.
Go big or go home right now.
Exactly.
Then we've got Waynesville going to Milton Union. We've got 4 SWBL Buckeye schools at 6-2 and 3-1 in the league right now. These are 2 of them. The other 2 will play in Week 10. Milton Union, big, long-standing rivalry with Waynesville, especially after last year losing to them on the road, then losing to them again in the playoffs. I think Milton Union, especially after the way the Dixie game went, I think they're going to be angry. I think they're going to take it out on Waynesville.
I think they're motivated as well, and I think they know what's on the line now. They're looking at the possibility after such a strong start to the season. Obviously, if they lose this game, that pretty much puts them out of the running for a league title, but it also puts them maybe on the outside looking in for a playoff berth. I think there's just too much on the line for Milton Union. I think they're going to pull out the win this week.
There is a lot on the line for Milton in this game. There's no denying it. Playoffs, league title. And I know, talking to Coach Pierce last week, his team is very, very motivated, especially after what Waynesville did to him last year, beating him for the league title and beating him in the playoffs. And I know they didn't like what Waynesville did during those games either. And I've been tossing and turning about this game. I'm going to give it to Waynesville just to catch him in the standings. Go big or go home, right?
To risk it to get the biscuit.
Exactly. But no, I could see this game going either way.
Miami East going to Twin Valley South. Twin Valley South actually surprised Miami East last year. They won in 2 overtimes. They were throwing the ball around everywhere. Miami East defense had a hard time stopping them. This was a high-scoring game. I don't think Twin Valley South is going to surprise Miami East this time around.
That's not going to happen this week. Miami East is playing really well of late. I think the win against Bradford was a really nice win for them, and it said a lot about what Miami East is capable of doing. I see them rolling over to Twin Valley South this week.
Yeah, Miami East will win this game hands down. They'll finish out the year, I think, with a 7-3 or what is it, 8-2 record. Is that what they're going for?
7-3.
7-3. Yeah, they'll definitely finish out the year 7-3.
Bethel going to Arcanum, first step towards that 5-5 record of 2, and I think they take it. They both share 3-5 records, but I think Bethel is the stronger 3-5, just based on who they play.
I would agree with that. They're a stronger 3-5, and we've been saying since we started doing this is what Bethel has been building toward all season. We knew they were going to take their lumps early. We knew they were going to be a better team in the second half of the season. Kevin Finfrock was going to make them a better team in the second half of the season, and that's exactly what they've done, and Arcanum's just standing in their way right now.
Bethel.
Another quickie, Covington and Ansonia. Covington.
Are we even going to talk about this? Nope, Covington.
Winless Mississinawa Valley going to Bradford. Bradford.
Next.
Well, again, next. That was pretty easy, too. I think another big game for James Cannon.
Piqua going to Butler. This one's actually kind of on an even playing field, I think. I think Butler's going to have the edge going in, especially with some of the teams they've played. Butler's got Trotwood in the final week of the season, though. I think they could get caught looking ahead. I don't think they will. I think Butler's going to get Piqua here, but it's going to be close.
I tell you what, having seen Butler play, Butler plays really well on both sides of the line. Their offensive line and their defensive line both do a really nice job, and I think they're going to be a little bit too big and too strong for Piqua to handle. It's going to be a close one, but I think Butler's going to squeak it out.
Yeah, I think Butler will squeak it out too. It will be a close game, but I think Butler ultimately gets it done.
And then finally, we got Spencerville going to Lehman, 6-2 versus 4-4, and that's 6-2. Their only 2 losses are to 8-0 teams. So I'm giving the edge to Spencerville, even though this is Lehman's finale.
I'm giving the edge to Spencerville, knowing going in that whatever I pick's probably going to be wrong anyway, because we can't seem to pin Lehman down on when they're going to win and when they're going to lose. But I'm going to go with Spencerville.
Bearcats win it, not the Cincinnati Bearcats. The Bearcats.
And then we've got Purdue at Ohio State. Can Ohio State's defense keep Purdue under 50 points?
Can Purdue keep Ohio State's offense under 60 points? It's going to be a basketball.
Very legit question.
A basketball game may break out at the Horseshoe again.
All right, guys. That's it for Week 9. We'll see you next time on the Blitz.